This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone, for part 2 of this very special 2-hour edition of the X-Zone. Our 2 special guests, Stanton Friedman, www.stantonfriedman.com, and Kathleen Marden, www.kathleen-marden.com. We're talking about, we've talked about the Betty and Barney Hill case. We've talked about Dr. Donald Menzel. We've talked about Edward Condon. We've talked about the $100 check that Stanton received from Philip.
1,000.
I'm sorry, 1,000. Actually, back, that wasn't a bad coup for you. Did you cash it?
Of course I did.
Why didn't you hold it? At least it would have been worth, maybe 2,000 Canadian by now?
Oh, yeah. Well, I did Xerox it, and so it's appeared in books and stuff.
Well, that's good.
At my lectures, I show it on the screen.
I know, I saw it. Yeah, that's right.
And so that impresses people. I always get a good laugh from that.
Kathleen, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. And Stanton, you are one of the heroes of the ufology crowd. And like I said, you're a very fine gentleman, and it's always a great pleasure talking to you. But Kathleen, why do you think that the majority of mainstream scientists today think of UFOs as a taboo subject? Like, what are they hiding, if anything?
I think that there was a very carefully orchestrated plan to make this topic of UFOs a taboo topic, and that I have found evidence that a number of individuals who were mainstream scientists and Philip Glass, who I couldn't say was a scientist. He had a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, but he was one of the editors at Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine. They orchestrated a plan to encourage scientists not to speak on the topic of UFOs. And they even had a petition where they wanted scientists to sign this petition, agreeing not to entertain anything with regard to that topic. And that was back in 1969, 1970. It was right after Edward Condon released his statement to the public about the so-called scientific study for UFOs. And they were working very diligently to make sure that no funding was given to scientists for that purpose. And, way back in 1968, Philip Glass had set Dr. James McDonald up to take a fall when he gave Jack Anderson from the Washington Post incorrect information stating that McDonald, who was actually using Office of Naval Research funding to do a cloud study in Australia, was actually over there doing UFO research. Now, he was doing UFO research during his spare time when he was not working on cloud studies. But Jack Anderson published those allegations against James McDonald based upon this false information given to him by Philip Klass. Once it was published in the Washington Post in 1968, Philip Klass took that article and wrote a letter to the Office of Naval Research stating that the shocking misuse of Navy research funds cited in the article was not only true, but condoned by the Office of Naval Research contract monitor, who is responsible for protecting Navy taxpayer interests. And Philip Klass stated that if they gave any more funding to James McDonald, he was going to create very large problems for them in Washington. And so, even though James McDonald was exonerated from wrongdoing after an investigation of what he was actually doing, Philip Klass won in the long run because he did not receive another penny from the Office of Naval Research. That is the kind of thing that was happening, and it was the result of this orchestrated plan to destroy scientific interest and to make UFOs a taboo subject.
We have to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Exo Nation, Kathleen Marden and Stanton T. Friedman, and I will return on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Stanton D. Friedman and Kathleen Marden are special guests. For more information about Stanton, his website is stantonfriedman.com, and for the lovely Kathleen Marden, www.kathleen-marden.com. Kathleen, is it possible that this misinformation, this diversion, or however we want to look at it, was actually done in a matter of national security because the powers to be did not want the scientific community opening up a Pandora's box of who knows what?
Well, it certainly is possible that it was a matter of national security, and that's the reason that these individuals were probably, in my opinion, hired or contracted in some way to work toward this goal. And when I looked into the backgrounds of these individuals, I found that all of them had been under investigation for un-American activities or had their security clearances pulled. In the case of Philip Klass, he was under investigation twice for publishing classified information. And the only reason that he was not prosecuted for that is because they could not declassify the information in order to prosecute him. He was also suspected for un-American activities. He was being followed by the FBI. He had a relationship with a Russian man from the Russian embassy and was seen in his presence, went to parties at the Russian embassy. The FBI actually broke into Klass's apartment and searched his apartment for radio equipment. They suspected him of being a spy. And, all of this going against him could have been used to coerce him into working on their side to disinform the public about UFOs. That's only my suspicion. I have no solid evidence, but I followed the trail, and that's where it led.
Stanton, I understand you actually talked to United States Air Force General Bolender. What did you ask him, and what were his answers?
Well, I told him that I had seen his letter that resulted in the closure of Project Blue Book, and I asked him if I told him it sounded to me like you're saying there were two separate channels of communication, one for the cases that could affect national security and the other for run-of-the-mill stuff. And he agreed. And that's why I bring in MJ-12 into the picture. The good stuff had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed with Bolander. And look, it doesn't take much imagination to say that the guy you put in charge of engineering for the lunar excursion module has to be somebody who's very well thought of. You pick your best people, right?
Yep.
I mean, you know how sensitive it was that if we fouled up there on the moon, holy cow, the ramifications were extraordinary. So I was very impressed with Bolander, and he played it straight to me. He agreed that there were two separate communication channels. Now, look, I should add here now, because I worked under security, I know much for 14 years. I know much better than to ask questions for which the answer is going to be classified and cannot therefore be told me. You respect people who have a clearance and who have their own need to know and so forth. And a good example of that, one of the astronauts was somebody that I had met when we were both working on radiation shielding for nuclear systems. And I saw him a few years later and said, gee, I'd heard a lot about sightings by astronauts. And the way he answered clearly told me that I was treading in ground that I wasn't going to get an answer, and I certainly wasn't going to push him. Well, he didn't think there was anything that hadn't been explained and so forth. And you learn, you remember the brotherhood, so to speak. That's an awkward way of putting it, but you know what I mean.
Sure, I do, yeah.
You respect this, and so you don't push people like that. And so, you know, there are undoubtedly many people. Well, you also worry about things like class. One of the things he did was send a letter to the Canadian authorities about me, attacking me when I was going to be moving to Canada. He said some very nasty things in the letter. Richard Dolan found it in the files. He thought I knew about it, and I didn't know about it. But what business does class have trying to tell the Canadian authorities that somebody is coming who's going to say bad things or good things, depending on how you look at it, about UFOs? You know, what was he? He was subverting something or other, I guess, across the boundary. I mean, at least I'm a dual citizen. I can talk to both governments.
Well, you know, we're very proud to have you here in Canada, Stan.
Well, I'm very proud to be here.
Gosh.
I surprised somebody the other day, was asking, how'd you wind up in Fredericton? And I told them and stuff, and I said, we moved 37 years ago, and I've never been sorry that we moved from California to Fredericton. You haven't? I said, no. It's a great place to raise a family, great place to live. I mean, California is okay. Don't you miss California, he said. I said, yeah, the weather was great. But it didn't take me long to get used to the traffic, which was horrible, and a few other things that were difficulties. But I learned to live, and the lovely things, it is a great place to visit. But I'm not sorry at all for the move, because there are other factors in life. Yeah. We never see smog here, for example.
That is true. That is true. Kathleen, why do you think that aliens want to come here? And why would the government want to keep it a secret?
Well, I would think that they would come here for exploratory reasons to begin with. And once they arrived, they would realize that there was a wealth of information here, many, many things to study. And they might be very interested in our warlike society. They might be interested in attempting to determine what makes us tick and why we engage in tribal warfare on such a very large scale, even though we are supposedly an intelligent species. So I think that is a large part of it. Also, if they had any sense of responsibility toward this planet, and if they are using this planet, they would, I would think, would want to take steps to prevent us from destroying this planet. And I have heard over and over again from experiencers the concern by these non-human entities about our use of nuclear weapons for warfare, and that they are concerned that we could destroy our planet, and they are taking steps to prevent that. And, I think that the government would cover all of that up because, first of all, what is to say that our visitors would side with one nation over another nation in war, or give one nation the military weapons to win, but not another nation? I think that we have to think about our military-industrial complex and the profits that we make from war. And if the government were to announce that some greater power was here that might end our wars, there would be much to lose in terms of profits.
But what would happen if the aliens or the extraterrestrials were actually the forefathers of our entire world? And if they were to return, or maybe they monitor their children, maybe the gods of the past are the extraterrestrials of today. And they've already been here. They have been part of our culture, the Nephilim, the Greek gods of the Pantheon, and so on and so forth. Is it possible? Is it possible that by saying yes, they were, that religion as we know it today would cease to exist, and since society of one sort or another is based on a religious philosophical belief, that it would turn this planet into total chaos?
That is certainly a possibility. And, I was going to mention the impact on religious groups, because if you go back as far as 1947 to Kenneth Arnold's sighting, when it was publicized in the media, there were religious groups who were stating that this signaled the end of time, that the end of the earth as we know it, and the repercussions from that were so great, possibly, that General Roger Ramey decided to launch a cover-up and to state that Kenneth Arnold's sightings of the flying discs were nothing more than weather phenomena. There's definitely a concern over religion as well.
Stan, you were going to say something.
Well, just that if you step back a little bit, you have to say that aliens looking at us, I mean, let's assume they check us out every once in a while, and the guys still don't have nuclear weapons. We don't need to worry about them. They're stuck there. But the thing that changes everything, and I think one of the reasons they're coming here, is to quarantine us, because I don't think the Galactic Federation Intelligence Agency, whatever you want to call them, would want us out there. I mean, let's look at the step. In 1944, a big bomb was a 10-ton blockbuster. Wow, it took a big 29 and carried the 10 tons of dynamite. That's a lot of destructive power. Okay, the next year, 45, our first atomic bomb, 20,000 tons of dynamite, which is a big jump up. 1952, our first H-bomb, 10 million tons of TNT. And the Russians exploded the Tsar Bomba, fancy name, 57 million tons of TNT energy release equivalent in one stinking bomb. And what I'm saying is that nuclear weapons are a horrible thought for anybody out there, that we might use them. But remember that since the war, we have exploded 2,000 nuclear weapons, and nuclear energy can be used for propulsion. So it means not only that the idiots on Earth explode bombs, only 2 on people, thank goodness, because some people had more sense, but also they should be able to bother us pretty quickly. I worked on a study, believe it or not, in 1962 of fusion propulsion for deep space travel. And the answer was very simple. If you got the dough, you can go, to put it crudely.
Speaking about go, we have to take our break. Please stand by for the news at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Stanton T. Friedman, Kathleen Marden, our guest this hour for a very special 2-hour presentation of the X-Zone, and we'll be back on the other side of the news. Don't go away.
Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Stanton T. Friedman and Kathleen Marden are very special guests this hour, X-Zone Nation. And, we were talking about bombs, and the question that I asked Kathleen was, why do you think that the aliens would want to come here, and why would the government want to keep it secret? In that same vein of questioning, why do you think that the Disclosure Project hasn't had as much success as people would think it would have, with all the different witnesses that are coming forth, the press conferences, and the work that Steve Bassett is doing?
I think, I don't know who you were asking that question.
To either one of you.
Go ahead, Stan.
Let me have a try at that. Just that it seems to me that they haven't appreciated the fact that there is a national security aspect, and they haven't considered the implications of what happens if our planet is based on countries, nationalism, if you will, lots of them. Any statement that, in effect, says, hey, we're all Earthlings and we got a bunch of non-Earthlings out there, somebody's going to lose power. There's nobody who speaks for the planet. We don't want anybody else to speak for the planet. And you say, well, hold an election. 1.3 billion Chinese and over 1 billion people in India. The United States isn't going to agree to hold an election for who should the world leader be, who can speak for the planet and so forth. So I think it is understandable that people in power don't want to give up power. But, the other side of that coin, when I say in power, there's a simple number that tells you a lot about us. 50 million people, Earthlings, killed in World War II. 1,700 cities destroyed. I think somebody would want to quarantine us. And I think the government doesn't want to do anything. That people in power don't want to give up any power, which I find distressing as an Earthling. But that seems to be the way things are.
Well, if that is the case, and nobody is taking the national security aspect into effect, would this be a reason for the government or the black ops to continue their misinformation campaign? It seems as if they've already accomplished.
If it works, why not keep it up? It's a sad commentary to stand back and look at how much effort goes into war on this planet and how little into really helping the people who need it. I wonder how many grad students from elsewhere come here to check out the idiots on planet Earth. There's something else, too, and this surprises some people I have found. The Earth happens to be the densest planet in the solar system. And what do you mean, the people? No. I mean, a cubic foot of Earth. A cubic foot of Earth weighs more than a cubic foot of any of the other planets in the solar system. And that means there are more heavy metals here. Heavy metals are very rare. Iridium, osmium, platinum, gold, uranium. These are much denser than lead. And so it may be that this is a place that they've been mining the goodies from. Uranium 100 years ago was used as a yellow coloring agent on dinnerware. That's illegal now, you understand, because it's radioactive.
Right.
So we don't know. The Navy, the nuclear Navy, is very dependent on zirconium. Now, I'm sure most people have never heard of zirconium, or if they have, what good did it do? But in the Navy nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers and stuff, zirconium is a key element in terms of construction material because it has the right nuclear properties as well as good high temperature properties. And I'm not a salesman for the nuclear industry, believe me, but I have to point out that wouldn't it be nice when you realize that an aircraft carrier, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, can operate for 18 years without refueling? That's an interesting change of how you do things if you got that under your command. You don't even worry about getting up to a tanker to refuel.
Yeah, exactly.
It changes everything. And we don't brag about it. But if you're going to the stars, wouldn't it be nice to have something that's very powerful and not very heavy and can get you there in a hurry? So that's why I think aliens, in good sense, would worry about Earthlings because of our behavior, that we could take our brand of friendship, everybody else calls it hostility, out there. What I'm saying is we haven't been around very long. Organized society on Earth, call it thousands of years, make it 10,000, 50,000, I don't care. It's a small fraction of the existence time for the universe, for the galaxy, for the neighborhood.
Right.
It would seem to me that more advanced civilizations learned long ago, you got to learn to get along with other people, or you're wasting your energy on warfare. And we certainly haven't learned that lesson, have we?
Nope.
And the new administration is they want to spend money on military stuff, don't they? At least sometime in the last few days I've heard that. Cancel the programs that help kids and poor people. But what was that deal with Saudi Arabia?
$110 billion.
Yeah, that's not feeding many kids.
Nope. No, it says that state of affairs.
I think maybe they're all graduate students studying, maybe extraterrestrial university says, hey, we got a lot of programs we can do on Earth, boy. Look at all the languages, look at how they behave, look at the mess they've made of this, that, and the other place. Who knows?
And they continue to make a mess of. Kathleen, can you give us a brief history beginning, with the beginning of the U.S. interest in UFOs?
Yes, absolutely. One of the first major studies that was done by the Army Air Force Air Material Command and the results was published in September of 1947. It was done by the chiefs of engineering, several laboratories. It was a well-done study, in other words. And the conclusion was, concerning flying discs, that they're real and not visionary or fictitious. They approximate the size of man-made aircraft, extreme rates of climb and maneuverability, metallic or light reflecting, circular, flat on the bottom, domed on the top. They suspected that these were extraterrestrial, but they weren't completely positive at that point. So it took a little while. They did another study, and that was done under Project Sign. And in that case, they evaluated 243 cases that could affect national security. And in the end, they favored an extraterrestrial hypothesis. Well, that ended up being covered up when all of the but two of the officers were assigned other work to do, taken off that, and they had two lower-ranking officers who simply went through and gave prosaic explanations for everything. If they couldn't think of one, they just said it was psychological. But in 1952, when Captain Edward Ruppelt began Project Blue Book, he did a very serious study. At that point, we had 4,400 UFO reports, and 1,593 had been investigated. And of those, they attempted to assign them to different categories, prosaic explanations, such as balloons, aircraft, astronomical bodies, hoaxes, insufficient data, etc. In the end, nearly 27% ended up falling into the true unknown category. And I want Stanton to talk about Blue Book Special Report number 14 because he does that so well. And that was the largest study ever done by the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, that was a remarkable document. I was so shocked when I found it at the University of California, Berkeley Library. I'd already read 10 books on UFOs, and none of them had mentioned it. And there it turns up, a privately published version. Dr. Leon Davidson had gotten a copy of it and published it. And I was shocked. I mean, it was loaded with data, over 200 charts, tables, graphs, and maps. I was in data heaven. I like data. B, they didn't distribute the report. This was in 1955, I guess it was. Instead, they just gave very wide distribution to a press release in October of 55. And they quoted the Secretary of the Air Force, Donald Quarles, whose name shall live in infamy as far as I'm concerned. They quote him saying that, on the basis of this study, we believe that no objects such as those properly described as flying saucers have overflown the United States. Even the unknown 3% could have been identified as conventional phenomena or illusions if more complete observational data had been available. Well, that takes care of the problem. The only trouble was I had the report. Where'd they get that 3%? It was 21.5%. That's a long way from 3. In addition, they had a category, insufficient information. If there wasn't enough data available about a sighting, it wasn't listed as an unknown. They're the only ones we're really interested in. It was listed as insufficient information. So that statement was wrong on 2 counts. In addition, it is interesting that they got away with something that the press didn't make a fuss about. They didn't give the title of the report. Surely if they had really said Blue Book Special Report 14, somebody would have said, hey, what happened to 1 through 13? We've never heard anything about them. That would have changed things, I think. And, of course, they didn't make copies available, and they didn't give the title, and they didn't say who did the work. But Battelle Memorial Institute's connection with the Air Force Intelligence Foreign Technology Division was classified. And they got away with it. Where was the press? Why don't you ask, hey, who did this work? You're telling this was such a wonderful study. So that made me angry. It really, I was, why shouldn't we have more information here? I was determined to find out more, and that's one of the reasons I joined NICAP and APRO, the 2 major groups back then, was because I was angry that we're being lied to, misrepresented to. And so Blue Book Special Report 14, and I still have copies available. I'm the only one who does, I think, that you can get. It's listed on my website. It's chock full of data. They did something else, too, that's important here. They said, is there really any difference between the unknowns, this group over here, the good stuff, and all the rest? Maybe we just goofed and these unknowns are really knowns, but we missed the boat. So they did a chi-square statistical analysis. Any mathematicians out there know what it is. But the point is, you look at obvious characteristics, parent size, color, shape, speed, that sort of thing, and see if the 2 groups match.
All right, we've got to take a bit of a cliffhanger here. We have to take our final break. Stanton T. Friedman, www.stantonfriedman.com, and Kathleen Marden, www.kathleen-marden.com. 2 special guests on this very special 2-hour special edition of the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour. Don't go away.
Are you curious? Do you want to learn more about how the world works and have fun at the same time? Study coincidences with me, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on my Connecting with Coincidence radio show here on the XZBN network. Listen to Jungians theorize, statisticians randomize, true believers evangelize, while I categorize. I dance to the rhythm of coincidences. People who experience me see more of them. Maybe something on the show matches a thought in your mind. Let us know. Expand your mind to the weirdness happening around you. Synchronicity spoken here, there, and everywhere. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence in your search engine and find my website, my social media sites, and my blog.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A Soul Balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
All right, Exonation, when we last left the show on the other side of the break we just took, Stanton Friedman was in data heaven because he had graphs, he had charts. And Stanton, tell us what your opinion of the entire report was.
Well, it's Project Blue Book Special Report 14. It's the biggest study ever done on UFOs for the government or anybody else as far as I know. Covered more cases, and there was an awful lot of good work in there. They asked some sensible questions, like, is there any difference between the unknowns and the knowns? And the answer is, yes, there is. The unknowns are different. So it was a milestone, but it's amazing how rarely it is mentioned by the debunkers. It's as if it didn't exist. Look, Carl Sagan, we were classmates for 3 years, so I don't consider him a debunker. He was a friend at the University of Chicago, that was. He said there are interesting sightings that aren't reliable, and which is true. And there are some reliable sightings that aren't interesting, but which is also true. But then he said, but there are no interesting and reliable sightings, cases that are both reliable and interesting. That's totally wrong. How did he get away with saying that? He didn't give any reference. And we find that consistently, that the debunkers are in la-la land, if you will. They keep making claims that are baloney. And, they ask the wrong questions. Isn't it true that most sightings can be explained? Yes, it certainly is. So what? It is also true that there are many things, like the amount of uranium. Uranium-235 is the useful isotope. 0.7%. Shouldn't we just say, oh, that's not worth talking about? No, we say we spend a lot of money. World War II built a mile-long facility to separate the U-235 from the U-238, and we were using 5% of all the electricity produced in the United States. So the fact that it's a small amount doesn't mean it's not worth dealing with. But there's something else that's happened that's changed in our lifetimes. Even though I'm older than you two, I'll say our lifetime. And that is when Frank Drake was talking about SETI, Silly Effort to Investigate, SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, supposedly. There might be 8,000 places that could be sending us signals. Well, there might be, I suppose. But now the number, thanks to the Kepler satellite and the measurements made from space, we're talking billions of planets. Just to bring it home a little closer, within 100 light years of here, and the galaxy's 100,000 light years across or so, but within just 100 light years of here, there are 10,000 stars. The latest data suggests that the number of planets per star is between 1 and 1.6. So within a mere 100 light years, there's between 10,000 and 16,000 planets. That's an enormous number by comparison to what we used to think. And unfortunately, what it does is it downgrades us, doesn't it? I mean, we're not on top of the heap. At least it's hard to imagine if you say the universe is at least 13 billion years old, and that there are planets all over the place out there. It's hard to think that we're the most advanced beings around. We haven't been around that long. We haven't done that much. We've made a heck of a mess. So our perspective, there were people who would have said 60 years ago that, this is the only solar system, and we have the only planet that's got a lot of water on it, and so we're the big cheeses of the neighborhood. Big neighborhood. Universe. And you don't hear that much anymore. I don't get people telling me, oh, surely we're the only ones. And as a matter of fact, I get it in the reverse. And I'm sure you do too, Kathy and Rob.
Yeah.
Surely we're not the only ones around,
But with all this information, Stan, that you and Kathleen and other credible researchers have done, why isn't mainstream media picking it up and saying, you know what, look at this new evidence. It's not new. It's been there. We just haven't been doing our job.
It's a very good question. I think it means that we're not ready to change the, what's the fancy word for the situation as it exists. We don't want to admit the government doesn't want to admit they've been lying for 70 years plus. I'll be in Roswell for the 70th anniversary. Kathleen will be there, too. Both of us will be there. 70 years, can you imagine? And incidentally, as an indication of the public interest, last year, the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell was visited by 204,000 people, even though it's in the middle of nowhere. 200 miles from Albuquerque, 200 miles from Amarillo, 200 miles from El Paso. And it's not on the way to anywhere. 204,000 people visited there. That's an impressive number to me. And I'm sure it's going to be crowded this year because of the anniversary. So why... there's an old statement made by a scientist. New ideas come to be accepted, not because their opponents come to believe in them, but because their opponents die and a new generation grows up that's accustomed to them. And I think that's kind of where we are, isn't it? The old order changeth, yielding place to new. And I suppose that's a good thing. I hope I'm around long enough to see the conversion, so to speak.
Yeah. Kathleen, do you think we'll have disclosure soon?
I am very pessimistic about the idea that we might have disclosure soon. Unfortunately, I think there are too many reasons why our governments of this world are not giving us disclosure, although there has been limited disclosure by many nations. I think that when disclosure comes, it's going to come from the bottom up, where enough individuals around this planet will realize that this is real, and we will reach a tipping point where the government denial will mean nothing any longer.
Why don't they just land on Parliament Hill, on the White House lawn, in front of Buckingham Palace, Red Square, and the list goes on? Why don't
Well, they know we know they're here. After you've been tracked on radar umpteen times, you know the other guy knows you're there. They don't consider us equals, I don't think. Should they? I don't think they should.
But once again, why don't they just make their presence known, undeniably known?
What's the benefit?
They have shown themselves to large populations of individuals, but why should they land on the White House lawn or on any other government lawn? It might be perceived as an invasion. It might bring about a military attack, and that I don't believe is something that they would like to see happen.
All right, but if they are as intelligent as believers believe they are, would they not already know how the best way to make this approach would be, and that they would do it in such a manner that it could not be misinterpreted as an alien attack, but as a friendly gesture of communication?
I don't make friends with the ants.
Do you with the uncles?
Good line, Rob.
You know, there are so many questions.
It's a very complicated question,
yeah,
and I don't know how to answer it.
Listen, the time has come. Well, maybe by letting people know where they can purchase your books and where they can find you two coming up in appearances very shortly, that we might be able to find people who have the answers who would be glad to talk to you and give you the extra ammunition for your guns.
I talked to a lot of experiencers who have received information, but I'm not positive that is the answer.
So let me see. Kathleen, your books are available on your website at www.kathleen-marden.com. And Stan, I know you are all over the place, including your website at www.stantonfriedman.com. What are your final thoughts, gang? We've got about a minute and 30 seconds.
Kathy, you go first, ladies before gentlemen.
Well, I just want to say that it was a pleasure to be on your show again. I think that our book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers, answers many questions. We have done years of archival research to put this book together. We have published information that has not been published elsewhere. So those who have read it have made statements that it was, one person actually said it was the most important book that they had ever read on that topic. So I really appreciate that. And I want to say also that if you'd like to know where I am going to be lecturing this year, if you'd like to read any articles on my website, if you would like to purchase an autographed copy of any of my books, you can go to Kathleen-Marden.com.
Stan, you've got about 20 seconds, my friend.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No. You can get my books and my articles at www.stantonfriedman.com, and you can buy our stuff at Amazon, of course, but you don't get the autograph from Amazon. You get it from us. Everything we send out, we autograph.
Stanton and Kathleen, I hate to do this,
us.
buddy, but we've run out of time. I want to thank you both again. Kathleen, always a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success. And Stan,
thank you.
What can I say about the perfection of you to the rest of the world that they don't already know? Stanton T. Friedman, take care of yourself, my friend. Be healthy. I'll be back on the other side of this break, X-Zone Nation, as we continue on the other side of the news from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.